Good afternoon, everybody. We are excited to have you here for our second network meeting of the California UDL Network. My name is Pam Tuppy, and I'm an Inclusive Practices Coordinator at the Orange County Department of Education, and I'm one of your facilitators for this network. I'm going to go ahead and let Fred introduce himself, and then Rhonda, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Fred Cochran from San Joaquin County Office of Education, and I am a coordinator for continuous improvement and support, and happy to be one of your facilitators today. And I'd like to introduce.
Hi there, everybody. I am Rhonda Marriott Spencer, and I'm the manager of the Learning Support Services team with the Orange County Department of Education. Happy to see so many friendly faces here today.
Thank you so much, Rhonda and Fred. We are excited to have you here today. We are going to be recording this meeting, so if you have other colleagues that are interested in any of the content, they can visit the resource we'll show you in a second where we house all of our documents, so they can see any of that content, because we have two really great presenters today. So before we go ahead and get started with some of our content, we would love to know who is here. So if you would just in the chat do a quick roll call, if you could put your name, your county office, your district or school site in the chat, that would be great. We would love to know a little bit more about those of you that are here. Also, as you're doing that, I just want to point out that Rhonda has put a link to our resources in the chat box, and we'll continue to put that in the chat throughout the session for those people that arrive late or have any or just get bumped off for any reason. So we are really excited to have all of you here today. I'm just going to pull up my chat that seems to have disappeared. It looks like we've got a lot of great people today from all across the state, from Placer, from Butte. We've got one of our MTSS TOSAs here from Tustin, LA, San Bernardino. Welcome, Krista. Jennifer Levine from Boston. We're really excited she's here because she's one of our presenters. So great to see such representation from everybody across the state. Thank you so much for being here and for participating. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm one of your facilitators as well as Fred, and we're joined by Rhonda, who is also part of our network team. Two additional members of our network team that aren't on the call today are Richard Gifford from the California Department of Education, as well as Steve Nordmark from UDL IRN. And we will be hearing from his team a little bit later today as well. So you'll get to get familiar with his face as well. Fred, do you want to go ahead and take us through our meeting norms?
Yes, I do. So many of you probably have been on our calls before, but we like to keep these norms available for everyone. We ask that everyone mute, obviously, when they're not speaking, but we really want you to feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions. And thank you, Rhonda, for monitoring that for us. I think we all know after this crazy year of joining calls that you can't really be in the same room with more than one person linked in at the same time because you get all the background noise. So obviously you all know that. So anyway, as Pam said, we're going to record the call so that way you can refer back to it or share it with others. Okay. And the next slide is really about where we started. You know, Pam, Rhonda, and I, and at that time when James McKenna was with us as well, we always want to bring us back to the outcomes that we shared in the very beginning when we started the California UDL Network. It was always a place we envisioned, a place to share best practices and to capitalize on the expertise of our colleagues in the state so that we're working together and supporting one another. So we keep that in mind, and we always want to come back to that every time we have a new call with all of you. Today, we're just so excited. As Pam mentioned earlier, we have two great presenters for you today. Jennifer Levine from CAST will be presenting, And a new friend of mine will present as well, Heidi Espindola, who is the STEM coordinator at Placer County Office of Education. And she will be sharing Math Success for All. And we're excited to hear about all of these great presentations today. And of course, we'll share resources in upcoming events. We also wanted you to be aware that we have everything for you in a shared folder. So Rhonda will put the link in the chat for you in case some of you are new to this. But the subfolder that we have has all of the trainings and notes that we share. Keep in mind that we'll have one more meeting May 18th from 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So we're excited about that. So we'll be in contact with you to hear any suggestions or things you might need for us to present next time around. Okay. So Pam is going to get ready to introduce. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have one more slide. So, what makes me happy is smiling. And, we always try to do a little emotional check-in with everyone. And I'm a guy who likes to smile a lot. I'm pretty optimistic about life and things the best I can be. But, just knowing that if you smile, you're releasing some of those happy hormones. And that even just for the moment you do that, it can make you just feel a little bit better. So don't forget to smile throughout the day and smile every day, because there's a good feeling that goes with that. So find something in your heart that you can smile about. And we're so happy today. We're smiling because you're with us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred. That's a great note to use to segue to our next part of our meeting. Just a note, if you were just admitted a few minutes ago, there is a link in the chat to the handouts for today. We're also recording this meeting so that you can access it later and you can share it with colleagues that maybe weren't able to attend. So I get the great pleasure of introducing Jennifer. She's the Director of Professional Development for the Center for Applied Special Technology, or CAST, and she has been a great partner of ours over the years. And it's been amazing to see just how CAST is giving so much to the educational field right now and giving us so many resources, especially during this really turbulent time. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer. Jennifer, is it okay if I just go ahead and click the slides for you, or do you want to be a co-host? What's your preference?
Nope. That's perfect. You can just click. I don't have too many to go through.
Okay,
am
awesome.
I presenting Steve's slides too? Is he not joining us?
He is here. Steve's here.
Oh, he is. Okay, beautiful. All right. Oh, well, this one you can skip. My name is Jennifer Levine, and I am joining you from CAST out here in Boston. And well, welcome. I'm really happy to see you guys here. I am not planning to take a huge amount of time here, but I just wanted, I have the honor, I guess, of getting to tell you about a resource that CAST has recently created. And I think it's pretty fun that I get to present it because I had nothing in the world to do with it. So I can tell you how great the resource is. So we created at the beginning of this school year, we were asked to create a video series that would really support teachers. This was kind of back when we thought we'd be coming back to school in the fall. And the idea was to help support teachers to find out where their students were after kind of ending school in the spring, or ending live in-person schooling in the spring. How could we return to school and kind of assess where they are, assess the gaps in their learning so that students could get caught back up? And skip ahead 6 or 8 months, and we are mostly still remote from our teaching. And I think that the assessment videos are actually even more useful now probably than they were at the beginning of the school year. So this is a 6-video series. Each video is between, I'd say, 10 and 20 minutes. So you can skip to the next slide, Pam. The first video, if you're only going to watch one of them, is probably the video to watch. It's the intro to assessments video. And the goal of this is really to help you understand different types of assessments, when you would use them, and the best ways to use them. So it goes in just real briefly into the difference between formative and summative assessments, and when you would want to use them. Those of you who are here, I assume, know quite a bit about UDL. These videos are not necessarily designed for people who have a deep understanding of UDL. So it talks a lot about the idea that the barrier is not in the individual student. The problem isn't that, you know, all of our students are behind because they didn't log on during remote teaching. The problem is that the way we designed our remote teaching didn't encourage students to log on, or that you know, in this case, it's looking at assessments. What is the barrier in the assessment? If a student maybe knows how to do something, but that's not coming through when they take their assessment, how do we redesign the assessment to look at the idea that the barrier is in the design of the assessment, not in the individual student? And so what I like about these videos is they give you really concrete tips. So this one goes through 7 tips for how you can make good assessments. And then it gives you some examples of what different kinds of assessments might look like. You can jump to the next slide. The second video is on evaluating your own assessment. So how do you know if you are assessing what you think you are assessing? An example we see a lot is, you know, if I want to know if my students can add single-digit numbers, and I give them a word problem to do this, a student who maybe doesn't speak English, or a student who doesn't decode or comprehend their decoding well, may know how to add single-digit numbers, but because they can't read the question, they get the question wrong. So this is talking about construct relevant versus construct irrelevant assessments, and how you can tell when you have construct irrelevance in your assessment. And then it takes you through kind of a 5-step process of how you design your assessments, from presenting the information, to how students will interact with the construct, to how they'll produce a response, to how you create a quantitative score, to how you make an inference from that quantitative score about what the student knows. And it really is the overarching themes in this have to do with us being able to make informed decisions about our teaching from looking at the assessments that we've given, and how we set high expectations and also support students to get there. So you can jump to the next slide there. So then there are 5 more videos that are just different grade level videos, so that if I teach K to 2, or if I teach 9 to 12, or anything in between, that I can get some really concrete ideas to try out in my own virtual or real classroom, and these give me not only ideas to try out, but methods to evaluate the quality of the assessments that I create. You can jump to the next slide. The best part about this whole series is that it comes with an assessment playbook. So the series is extremely useful, but probably just more at the introductory level. Once you've gone through the series, if you really want to dive into how to create assessments, you can get that from the assessment playbook. And I'm trying to see if I'll copy the link for it and put it for you into the chat when we have a moment. So Are there any questions about the playbook or the videos that you have that you want to throw into the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question?
I would just like to say that they are very entertaining. Not only are they informative and really a great resource, but they are fun to watch. You guys were awesome, and I love them.
Yeah, my favorite thing about them is if you do watch them, Bill, who is they're four, I guess, characters, but four folks who act in them. And Bill is the most serious, non-joking person I know, and it's hilarious to watch them make him do silly things. So quite entertaining to watch.
It's very entertaining.
Great. Well, thank you, Fred, for giving me a chance to talk about this. I'm passing the mic back to you all.
Yeah, and I think this is Steve Nordmark. I'm gonna pick up for these next slides. So thank you all. I work with Jennifer at CAST. In the introduction, Pam referred to the UDL IRN. So the UDL IRN is the UDL Implementation and Research Network. I helped get that nonprofit going, and then just, I guess, a couple of years ago, the UDL IRN and CAST merged together because we had such symbiotic missions and work that we were doing. So as a part of CAST, I'm leading the credential and certification efforts that we have going on in the learning design platform. But we wanted to make sure that all of you knew about these two really important events. In the age of COVID, these are going to be online events again this year. The links are available in the slide deck, and we can put them in the chat window as well. So the UDL IRN Summit is upcoming in April, and that link will take you to the page where you can find a little bit more about that and preview some of the sessions that are already planned. And then the 7th annual CAST UDL Symposium will be right at the end of July, beginning of, I guess end of July. And one of the unique things that we're doing now that we're all in one team is that you can buy tickets to one event or the other, or now this year, you can actually buy a combined ticket for both events. So it's providing some cost savings to those of you which would be going to both events. And there's great reasons that you'd want to go to both events. You can go to the next slide. So I mentioned learning design. Some of you may have already used that as a resource for some of your information gathering around universal design for learning. It is the platform that we've created to create community around universal design for learning, to promote best practices and collaboration. We have used that in a variety of different projects in the state of California already, and plan to leverage that as part of the UDL network UDL network efforts that we're going to do within the state of California going forward as well. You can go to the next slide. What we have showcased as a really important element within learning design are the UDL credentials. And today we have both the level 1 and level 2, the associate level 1 and the core foundation level 2 credential that provide educators the opportunity to qualify with what we term a global standard of evaluation, your knowledge and skill with UDL. And we will this year be releasing level 3, which will move past your design understanding and actually move into an initial practitioner level credential. So we're very excited about that and hope to be able to showcase that sometime around the symposium timeframe. So any questions, you can leave that up for people, or if people want to go back to any of those other slides, happy to answer any questions about what's going on at the events, or learning design, or the credentials?
Steve, I think one of the great things about the On-Demand Summit and the Symposium is that you archive them for a period of time, so participants can go back to different presentations and sessions. Is that still going to be the case?
That is the case. And Fred, that's actually, I think the first time I met you, or at least became aware of some of the work that you were doing, was when you presented at last year's, and you showcased the toolkit that you've done in LiveBinder, which is a phenomenal resource. Yeah, and I think that day, or maybe even the next day, we cataloged that in Learning Design. But the sessions from the summit are already archived and cataloged in Learning Design, so people can even search on those and get access to them.
The symposium sessions are available if you register. They're available usually until, well, not usually. Last year was the first year we did it, but I assume this year will be the same, that the recordings will be available from July, when the symposium is, through January. And if you'd like to register for just the recorded sessions and not come to the live, that's also available.
There is a question in the chat that Jeremy actually posted around, this is regarding the assessment playbook. And the question is, has anyone led conversations or professional development using the assessment playbook, or are they intended to be self-paced? So maybe Jennifer, if you could speak to that. And then also I'm going to call on our colleague, Kevin Schaefer, and I think he has some suggestions too.
Yeah, so they are designed to either go through them yourself as an individual, or if you use the playbook has all kinds of guiding questions that a PLC might use as they work their way through the video. And then I'll pass it to Kevin, who has done that.
Well, coincidentally, we were working with a district here in Sacramento on lesson design and identification of barriers in the lesson goal assessments, methods, and materials. And we were going into part 2 of assessment. And as we were working with the district in planning, we forwarded the videos as well as the playbook and really looked closely at the discussion questions, and they found them to be very useful, not only in the presentation, but working with their principals and their teachers on future implementation of assessments, especially as we look closer at our statewide assessments, our assessments that are classroom-based, our formative, our summative. So it really gave a great context for administrators and teachers within the district to move forward in that proactive identification of potential barriers. It was really great work, so I just can't say enough about it.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to see how our partners across the state are really trying to make all of these incredible resources that CAST has developed useful during distance learning. Fred, do you want to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, if there are no other questions for CAST or UDL IRN?
Great, yes.
Steve and I will be here, so if you have questions to throw into the chat, please do. Sorry, Fred, go ahead.
No, that's okay. And so, yeah, keep the questions coming. A feature that we like to have in our network calls are voices from the field. And we had a really nice recommendation to contact Heidi Espindola from Placer County Office of Education, who's a STEM coordinator there. And I've gotten the opportunity to talk to her virtually. We're like virtual friends right now. And it's been so nice to hear about the work that she's doing around the Math Success for All project. As you can see her picture here, which always helps personalize our presentations to see who's talking. Heidi has her own Twitter handles, so you can follow her there as well, because there's some wonderful things happening with the project that she's doing. So I want to welcome Heidi Espindola Espindola, and thank you for sharing your resources today with all of us.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Fred. And Pam, if you wouldn't mind refreshing the slides, there was just one slide out of order that I saw before. As Fred said, my name is Heidi Espindola, and I am from Placer County, and I'm here to talk about a project that we actually worked on and began about 2 years ago, which feels like a lifetime ago, and it's called Math Success for All. And it came out, oh, sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to cause chaos with Google. It came out of a grant that was through CSESA, and it was funded by Bechtel, and it was specific for mathematics, application of mathematics in UDL for students with disabilities in a general education classroom. I'm just going to keep talking while you do that. Oh, yay, we're back. Okay, go ahead and click forward. So we're looking at increasing the efficacy and the quality implementation of high quality mathematics in the gen ed classroom, K-6. And we're also looking at supporting administrators as teachers make these shifts. So our vision, next slide. So we're looking at helping them increase their knowledge of mathematics, disabilities, inclusive teaching practices, as well as engaging them in some continuous improvement pieces, root cause analysis, those types of things that they can do at a classroom, a site, or a district level. And we had great partners in this, including Kevin, who advised us from time to time when we said, help, we don't know what we're doing. All right, so really, when we came about this, next slide, we were really looking at the fact that gen ed, math, and sped were almost like on two different planets, and they just were not talking well to each other. Next slide. And a lot of times we're going in completely opposite direction. That seems to be sometimes the best case scenario, because the worst case scenario could be that we're blaming each other when we're trying to support our students with disabilities in mathematics. So to engage you all, so I'm not just a talking head the whole time, I thought I'd give you a chat. Why is implementing UDL in mathematics in general and for students with disabilities so difficult? Why is it mathematics? Because I have found this to be true, maybe you have not, but I have found that mathematics implementation is so much harder than other content area implementation. So I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that before moving on and talking about the project.
That is a great question, Heidi. I've faced this myself, so.
And if we have no thoughts, that's all right too. If you're tired of Zoom. Ooh, we got thoughts coming in, waterfall. Okay, the one right answer of math, teacher mindset, math itself. A lot of good examples, hard to find, different entry points, yep. The way we used to learn math, very different than the way math is being taught nowadays. Yep, that direct instruction being really the mainstay of what people are holding on to in mathematics. Abstract. Okay, lots of awesome stuff. If we could even save this chat later, I'd love to take it as an artifact in our modules. So I'm going to actually have you guys chat further on when I describe what our resource is. Next slide. Like I said, we've tried to bring together multiple pieces, really delving into that concept of math and what we believe mathematics is. It is definitely, that has definitely shifted from even a couple decades ago. And then understanding what universal design for learning is within that, continuous improvement, and then really there's the need for gen ed teachers understanding all the disability categories and what they do or do not actually mean about the particular students they are that are labeled with those categories. So we saw these 4 areas as pieces that we were really wanting to bring within this project. Next slide. And then we ended up creating quite a few modules. The resource is quite extensive. If you get in there, you might get lost. But ultimately, we tried to develop some foundational modules, about 4 foundational modules for teachers, 1 for administrators, and then some grade span specific modules and some PDSA type modules. So right now, we have like our K2, which is place value and number sense, and our 3-5, which is focused on fractions. Next slide. So it is an expansive resource. It's not meant to be, you sit down, you do it in like a few days and you're done. It's meant to be something that people can attend to and come back to. It's not meant to be done maybe just in a linear fashion necessarily, depending on your audience. There are some things that we thought were really, really important, and that we are trying to create expert learner educators. We do not want to preach at them. We do not want to tell them what to do. We want to provide them resources and the time and the space to really dig in and see what is best for their students with these understanding of best practices. It's about integrity, not fidelity. So we don't expect people to utilize these resources as is. We expect them to use what they need. And then to collaborate. We were hoping, and we put forth within this, that teams would engage, so that you had that SPED teacher with those gen ed teachers working together hand in hand, and they're not coordinating, they're actually collaborating to benefit students. Next slide. So we are currently in the midst of revision. So some of my slides coming up, I'm going to talk about the modules, and then the slide after it is talking about revisions. We are developing a series for middle school. So it'll be a 6-8 series. We're transferring all of the in-person materials to asynchronous Canvas courses, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And then we're also modifying all of the in-person lessons to be applicable to virtual and hybrid. An additional expansion that was requested by CCEE was that we expand to all marginalized populations, all student groups, and really delve into that culturally responsive teaching practices and call that out. And then we're also putting in some design principles, because UDL, design is right in the title, but a lot of times we don't treat it as such. So really emphasizing that piece. Next slide. So ultimately, we'll end up with 8 courses in Canvas, and we're chunking them together. And they'll be able to be done by an individual who just wants to go asynchronous at their own pace, and also able to be pulled in by a site team who wants to go through pieces of them together and have a facilitator help from their site or district help walk them through. Next slide. All right, so right now I'm going to actually give you the tiny URL to the website. So as you are listening, you can poke around in there. There's a lot there. And I will say that we have learned more about website design in the last 2 years. So we'll be updating that so it's more user friendly and less a very tangled web. Next slide. All right, so I really want to hear back from you. As you guys are seeing what is in these modules, I'd love to hear if there's any revision feedback that you may have for us as we're going through this and really trying to make it fit what the need in the field is. So the first thing I wanted to show you that came from the project is kind of like an anchoring document. Next slide, is this guiding prompts. We made this guiding prompts placemat because we were really trying to identify what is it in UDL that we can make very concrete for math instruction. So we kind of summarized and kind of tried to distill down what is the most important elements that we want to see down, and we kept them in the pillars as they are, those 3 pillars, but then trying to pinpoint like vocabulary usage was something big for us, so that vocabulary didn't develop in mathematics is not that beginning of a lesson, but it is actually within concept development that they are connecting things that they are engaging with to vocabulary rather than having that hard front load. There's many other things that are in here that you can find on our website. You can look them over. We'd love to have feedback on this if folks feel like we've missed the boat on what UDL means in mathematics. Always open to feedback for this. Next slide. So just our beginning module, really establishing consensus that there actually is a problem, because we want to always start from that place of data. That lack of comprehension, really going deep into those 13 disability categories, understanding what they mean and what they actually don't mean for our students. Always coming back to, you really got to get to know your students. You can't label them. They transcend labels. From that module, we're actually expanding, like I said before, next slide, and we're going to add more explicit kind of pieces for analyzing disproportionality, looking at different subgroups, really honing in on intersectionality, beyond their disability, all these pieces that make a student who they are. We want to get greater clarity. Executive function is in this module. We want to get greater clarity on what that looks like within mathematics, and also some strategies for it. And we're adding additional student profiles so that all student groups are represented, because there's this piece in this project that I think is really nice, in the fact that we have these student profiles at all the different grade spans of all of these various students that you can consider as you're moving through. Next slide. And module two is what we consider our continuous improvement. So now that we understand that there's a problem, let's dig into it at our site. And how do we go about doing that? Going through the typical continuous improvement pieces. How do we narrow down, and how do we be very specific to the systems of MTSS that we have on our site and how they serve all of our student populations? Next slide. Within this, again, looking at more specific ways of looking at our student subgroups through data, and then putting additional research-based resources for those change ideas, that once you have that driver diagram, okay, all those change ideas, a lot of them can seem to come out of thin air within continuous improvement. But if we can pull in more concrete ways of finding those, that implementation science kind of directs us to. Next slide. So this is where we really get into UDL. And if you'll see there's a book cover that should be familiar to most folks, How People Learn Too. We bring in a few resources like that, like the Annenberg Learner resource on how to apply neuropsychology within education, really getting to the heart of what learning is, because we find that a lot of people may be applying teaching practices incorrectly based off of the situation, just because they don't have a good understanding of what learning is and how it happens with students. Looking at math, the concept of math, and what it means to be an expert learner within this. Next slide. And so again, expanding the section about neurodiversity to include the concept of intersectionality, layering in on top of UDL, culturally responsive teaching, looking at what it means more deeply about expert learning in math as that strategic sense maker. And of course, incorporating those virtual, hybrid, and in-person teaching and learning pieces. All right, I have a few more slides. Hopefully I'm not boring the socks off you. Next slide. Oh, perfect. So module 4 is a module that a lot of people really like and cling to, and it's a module that I've always had problems with. I'm like, oh, it could be so much better. But you know, as one of the authors, you always feel like that. Really looking at how we remove barriers, how we can proactively plan, engaging in some example lessons that showcase generalized mathematics strategies that we think are pretty high quality There's a 3-act task with some notice and wonder, estimation, all those types of things that are listed there. And really looking at what does it mean to have a high quality math task? Because again, that has changed significantly within the last couple decades. Next slide. So within that one, module 4, there's actually some pretty unique things that we're going to try to do. And we have some folks over at San Bernardino, Superintendent of Schools, who are going to help us look at how to do IEP goals based off of the standards for mathematical practices and how to bring that in as a framework for those IEP goals. This is, again, where we're going to be including those design thinking principles so that we bring the design back into UDL. And then just expanding, of course, to support all students, not just our students with disabilities. They're close and near and dear to my heart, so they will always be in the forefront of this, but expanding, of course. All right, so those are our foundational modules. We have 4 modules. They're a lot. And if anyone thought that they could be done within a short amount of time, no, they do have a lot in them. So again, not expected to do them contiguously within a year, not expected to do with fidelity. We expect teams to just go in there, see what there is, take what they need. And to that end, we're actually providing with this revision more guidance with some vignettes of schools and sites who have gone in and chosen specific things for a specific need that their teacher population has. Next slide. All right, so the 5 is again a foundational piece, but that's really looking at the administrator support. So how does an administrator go about supporting and supporting the change that's happening within their site and help be that instructional leader? One of the pieces of feedback we got on this when we originally created it was we almost needed a foundational modules, all of those 4 for administrators, and we actually pushed back on that. And we said, we'll give them a little bit, but if you want them to be a lead learner at your site, they got to be with the teachers the whole way. This has to be a site initiative where they're coming together as a learner and the teachers are able to see their administration learning alongside them. So we have put things in this module that we feel is necessary for supporting the team, but this isn't like a redo of the foundation for admin because of that thought process. Next slide. And honestly, the only revision we're doing, we might expand a little bit, but really it's just how do you coach and how do you support teachers while they're in this virtual hybrid world? That's really the only piece that we're going to address here. All right, next slide. And Fred and Pam, am I way over time? Okay. Whenever I talk over 5 minutes, I get a panicky feeling like I'm talking too much.
No, you're good. You have a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so this is just our module 6s. And this is where we have that really deep application and lots of lessons. So there's actually 3 modules in each of these strands that attend to the 3 pillars within UDL. There's 3 to 4 lessons within each of those modules that teachers are asked to engage with as a student, but they can then take those and flip them and pull them into their classroom as well. They're asked to take on the persona of a student profile as they engage with them so they can really consider through a student's lens what it would be like to engage with this activity. They're not meant to be perfect, but they are just another lens to help teachers refine what it really means to universally design their lessons. Next slide. This is where I'm really excited to do some work. We're again expanding to middle school, but also offering that virtual toolbox of math manipulatives, math tools that can be specific to K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8. And again, expanding to that all student groups and pulling in those culturally responsive teaching practices. Next slide. So only a little bit more, and then I'm going to be done. I'll stop talking. I'll stop being a talking head. But we have these modules, we call them our 7-8. These are our PDSA modules. So these are modules that are kind of alone outside of the series, meant to be engaged with at any point to help teachers really have that, that learning, deep learning and application, and very agnostic to what they want to PDSA, what they want to do that during that teaching inquiry cycle, but just to help guide them through that process. And we've cited some other resources that we found from other people guiding people in a NIC through this process. And we're also pulling in some of those drivers from NERN to try to make this a well-rounded resources for people doing inquiry at their sites and within their classroom. Next slide. So again, in-person to virtual, and really expanding that portfolio, that digital portfolio that they can continue utilizing and utilize regularly. Next slide. So the last piece of the pie of this puzzle is a facilitator series. And so we have this facilitator series that will help guide folks through prior to engaging their teachers, prior to engaging their sites, really looking at what do we need to do to really think critically about our professional learning that we're providing, not just grab onto something quickly and run with it, but think about what is the plan for our next 3 to 5 years for professional learning. And then also norming, because norming is huge. Understanding the language between Gen and SPED is, oh, that's big. We do not speak the same language. So a lot of norming activities within this. Next slide. And so again, that effective guidance with vignettes and so forth. All right, I've talked enough. If you have any feedback, next slide, you can chat it, or if you're like, whoo, overload, there's my email. Feel free to email. There's ways to contact us is also listed on the website.
Thank you
I do.
so
One
much.
question did come in. I'm sorry, Pam.
Go ahead, Rhonda. Yeah, take it away.
A question did come in the chat around, are there any plans to add high school modules?
Oh, not this year. Please no. But yes. This is honestly, I think this is going to be a lifelong project of mine. You know, maybe in a year or two.
That's great. Well, something to think about in terms of your next steps. It definitely would be a resource to people. So thank you so much for sharing, Heidi. So we're going to take a, we're going to do a quick activity where you're actually going to have two choices. You can either you're going to be invited to a breakout room, and you can either accept that invitation to have a dialogue about what are some of the connections you're making? What are the things that are resonating with you right now? Or I'm going to pop this link back in the chat. You can spend some time going into the resource that Heidi shared earlier, or you can go back and look at some of the resources that Steve and Jennifer looked at. We're going to set a timer for 5 minutes so that you have a chance to go a little bit deeper in the way that is meaningful for you right now to process all of these amazing resources. And then I'll just send a little note to the breakout room when we're about to close, and then we'll come back to talk about some UDL Coalition updates and some upcoming events that you definitely want to be aware of in case you're interested in participating. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and grab my breakouts. And I'm going to create a bunch of rooms. And like I said, if you feel like what you want to do right now is join a breakout to process, please go ahead and do that. And if you want to go deeper in a resource, you can go ahead and do that as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and create these and open the rooms. And I'll just kind of keep note and see if there's nobody in a room, I'll maybe join some people up that happen to be there. So we're going to go ahead and come back in 5 minutes. So we will see you then.
Is there another breakout room? Mine was empty.
Yeah, Erica, I can go ahead and move you. I was just starting to move people around. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Cool.
Is this the big breakout room right here, Pam?
Yes, this is where people are looking in the community.
It's kind of hanging out, right?
Are you still working on those breakout rooms? Sorry.
Oh, you should have received an invitation to join one.
No. Okay, I'll just look at the resources. That's okay.
Okay, thanks,
Oh,
Erica.
sorry about that. Yeah, I came back because no one was in my room.
Me too. Did you just want to be our own breakout room?
I think that's a great idea. Why not 47 in a breakout room? Why not?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If you there should be an invitation that popped up for you, so I'm sorry that you're not seeing it. We're going to come back in a couple minutes anyway.
I'll rejoin mine and see if anyone's there.
Well, I can send you an invitation to go somewhere else, Fred. I didn't realize I was moving people. Here, I'm going to move you, Fred.
Anything resonating with you, Erica, that you wanted to share? Any ahas?
Well,
Any?
I actually, the link was, my tech is not working very well today. So I got in like 10 minutes late. So I missed the first 10. I actually was part of a group that tested out Heidi's work a couple of years ago. So I was just looking to see what revisions there are, but we actually did use a couple of her modules with professional learning with teachers and coaches.
That's great. I see Heidi's in here. I think she's wondering, how'd it go?
Oh, she knows how it went.
Oh, okay, good.
But I think, she mentioned a couple of things that I know really, really resonated with a lot of our participants. And that was the student profiles that she talked about. That was a really, really powerful activity. And then also, oh my gosh, Heidi, you mentioned something else too. And it's escaped my brain, but there was another thing that was really, really powerful, but that walking in the shoes of a student with their profile was really powerful. And it really helped our participants think about barriers are external from the student and not internal in the student. So that was a really powerful activity for them. And then all the ways that Heidi's team integrated some of the strategies that we've used in math and we've tried to encourage in math, like the 3-act tasks, like the different language routines. It really clearly makes the connection between why those do support universal design. So it's not something separate.
That is great.
It helps participants really see what a new vision for what math can look like.
Yeah, it's great when we find ways to allow or help people see the connections and see the relevance to it.
Yeah, it is. Well, it looks
And
like
I
we
did
got,
notice, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we have most people back from our breakout rooms now. So we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and move on just for the sake of time. We only have about 4 minutes left. So we just wanted to share a couple of updates for everybody. We have a couple of updates related to the California Coalition. This is just our statement of purpose. Again, we wanted to make sure that we were showing that and just making that transparent as we move through the process of continuing to build this statewide coalition. We have a few members on the call today. So I just wanted to make sure that Rhonda and Fred and I just highlighted Steve Nordmark, who's all you've already heard from. He's as a part of our coalition, as well as Jennifer Levine, Kristen Brooks, and Kevin Schaefer, Carol Higa from LA County, and I think I saw Noreen jump on too. So we are really excited to have several members of our coalition on the call today, and we will be hopefully becoming more of a structured entity that can help drive UDL forward in the state. Fred, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this is the contact list that you'll see at the end as well. If you are not on our list, we want to make sure you join this so that you can stay in touch. We'll post that in the chat when we get to one of the closing slides. But do you want to talk a little bit about the Gmail, Fred?
Sure, will do. Noreen Lippincott and myself are working on the UDL Gmail. We have our own Gmail now. So we want to be sure that you know you can contact us if you have questions about upcoming events, or these are our departments, basically, or our subcommittees: capacity building, the network, which you're on today, and the development of the coalition. So we welcome you to email us with questions if you have any, and Noreen and I will be sure to get answers back to you. So we're excited about that. You're the first audience to get to hear about our new email address. Also, I just wanted to mention, if you didn't know about it, the California Collaborative for Inclusive Literacy grant that CAST was awarded. We're so excited to be part of that. It's San Joaquin County with Placer, Fresno, Santa Clara, and LA County offices of education. And anyway, we want to be sure you know about that. There's a 7-part series that they're doing on hybrid for literacy development in the hybrid classroom. They're great, and they're being archived, so you can view those at anytime you want, or join the live broadcast. They're wonderful. Okay.
Kevin, if you happen to still be on the call, or Kristen, do either of you guys want to talk a little bit about the supporting inclusive practices?
Yeah, we'd love to. I'll share a couple of events, and then I think Kevin's going to share a couple. Awesome. So we have part 2, which is connected to our part 1 of Equity by Design, and this is with Katie Novak and Mirko Chardin. The part 1 is recorded and archived, and Kevin just dropped that link into the chat, and that was a 5-part series that included synchronous and asynchronous work, as well as we passed out conference in a box materials to the first 300 participants. So it was pretty exciting, including her book. So part 2 is a deeper dive. So as a result of part 1, everybody loved it so much that we said, hey, should we repeat this series, or should we do a deeper dive? So we're doing now Equity by Design. So in the cloud, conference in the cloud, which is part 2. Doesn't mean that if you engage in part 2 that you've missed anything, because you can either follow that link to see the archived information, or Katie and Mirko are going to present it to where we can catch folks up to speed. Again, more books are going out to the first 300 who register for that as well. And connected to that, because we want to make sure that our certificated staff, our admin, all those folks that support the implementation of UDL have the information, but as well as our folks in the classrooms, whether that be certificated or classified personnel, including our paraeducators. So we have an 8-part paraeducator series as well. And we're on number, is it Kevin, 5? Yep.
It's 5.
Yep, 8. So wow, it's a lot to count. And so the last 2 in our series were this one coming up is connected to behavior, but then the last two are UDL with Katie Novak. And so our paraeducators are going to be getting that sort of intro level version of what Universal Design for Learning is, so that everybody can start speaking the same language if we're not already, and get grounded in steering the boat in the same direction. So that'll be pretty amazing. And just all of these events are at no cost to folks. So please register and enjoy. Kevin.
Yes, we've also contracted with Andretisha Fitzgerald, who wrote the book Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning. We will have a webinar series. It's a series of 4 webinars beginning April 13th. We really wanted to focus on disproportionality and disproportionality within our special education population. So again, that's at no cost. Anyone can register. And we still have seats available in our equity education courses that are sponsored by Epic Education. You just have to go onto our website and register. You will be registered for all 9 of the courses. You'll receive a unique access code that you can then access all of the web modules. And again, that is open to anyone in California to develop a professional development process for implementing equity through your organization. So
awesome.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Kristen and Kevin. I also just want to point out that this is a hyperlink right there. So if you want to, if you lose the link that they already posted, that you can come back to the slideshow and you'll see that you can get right back to all the awesome resources that they just shared. Thank you so much. Rhonda, do you want to just give a quick update about the PLI?
Love to. Yes, please make note of this link to our website for the California MTSS Professional Learning Institute. Plans are underway for a fully virtual event. And so we are looking at 3 half days of this jam-packed conference. We will have interactive sessions. We will have a lot of ways to connect and very dynamic speakers. Of course, there is going to be a full UDL strand within there, so you'll continue to grow in your area of expertise with Universal Design for Learning. So check out the website. More details will be uploaded and updated as registration opens and all of that information. Thanks, Pam.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, for the sake of time, we're going to skip the chat review, but we are definitely interested in making sure that you are aware of how to keep in touch with us. Fred, do you want to close us out for the day and talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, of course. Again, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. And as I mentioned earlier, May 18th will be our last call for this school year from 2 to 3 in the afternoon. And we want to give you just a reminder to be sure to fill out the form for the coalition. If you have any schools or districts that you'd like to suggest to us that we should ask about voices from the field, please let us know. And if you have a resource that you just want to share, we're happy to do that. Again, what a great day. Great information, great sharing, so much. UDL is alive. Let's face it, guys. It's so exciting to see the work that's happening right now. So thank you so much for joining.